Hello everyone, this week we will learn how to do this contemporary cityscape painting. Welcome everyone to my home studio where I share my passion for watercolor paintings. My name is Dinesh. This week we will explore how old ways and new trends mix together in contemporary cityscapes. Before you go, be sure to hit the subscribe button to become a part of our learning community. By subscribing, you will receive weekly upload notifications and stay updated on our artistic journey together. Now, without further ado, let's get started, everyone. Let's start the sketching phase, and the inspiration is on top right. As you could see, it's kind of like a wintry day, and there's a person walking, and there's a little bit of perspective, like a one-point perspective. So I don't want to copy my reference as it is, so I switched it around and I changed the perspective from left to right. And since I'm painting for a while, so I also quite comfortable with my perspective, and you could use your own reference. You don't have to use inspiration for it. And moreover, I also want to make sure that my focal point is my streetcar, because the streetcar is in the foreground. I want to use that as a really strong element in my painting. So I don't do that much contemporary painting, and because I focus more of like impressionism and realism. But for this video, I was thinking maybe I should do something different out of the style. So I think every artist should explore this kind of different style, because it helps us to grow and not to sit on the comfortable face. And I used to do same thing, and even I do a lot of cityscapes with the streetcar in it, and like nowadays I'm doing more research and trying to create a different body of work, because this is kind of like not a strong element. Some people say it, but I personally enjoy painting streetcars, and that's what I do. And because I want to express myself authentically. And you can see that I focused on the streetcar. From the streetcar, I put a building on the left, because I want to create like a strong element, like a vertical, which will be sitting on the top left. And I also created a couple of street poles just to enhance perspective. And I also have 3 figures, so whenever I paint, I try to do everything in odd numbers, not even numbers, because odd number looks really nice because it's not symmetrical. And I'm trying to copy all the details of what I'm seeing in my reference. And I think this will help me to put everything together, and we'll take this and let's see what we can do with this. Now we finished the sketching, and let's do the first wash for the buildings in the midground and the foreground. And I did do one step. I just wet the paper in the foreground and I add some blue, purple, and mixed a little bit of white in it. And before it dried out, I splatter some paint in the foreground just to create a little bit of texture. And for the midground building, I'm making sure to use a lot of water in my paint, because I want to make sure this value is a little lighter and we can enhance a little bit of depth and dimension in our painting. So you could see, since I established a value in that big building, so I'm taking clean water and a little bit of blue in my brush, and I'm just taking it and blending it all the way to the background. So this gives the easy distance as we see in the inspiration, the reference. And I did look up some buildings to do the foreground building, and so whenever I do buildings, I'll try to overlap, because that creates a little bit of depth and dimensions for the buildings. And it also shows which is in the front and which is at the back. And you can see that I'm doing the exact same thing. I used for the colors, I'm using yellow ochre and a little bit of red in it, and I'm making sure to use a lot of water in it, because I want the value to be not to be darker than the midground building what we added. So now I'm adding a couple of darker pigments as the windows and the front part of the store of the building. And you can also see I left some darker tones, and I left some highlight for the person, because which enhances a little bit of depth as well. So now we finished the first wash for the building, and now let's do the first wash for the streetcar. So there's a trick I usually apply in most of my painting is to spend a lot of time on my foreground element than the rest of the painting. So the reason being is when this painting is seen from far, the foreground element will pops more, and the things in distance disappears. And the other thing which also does is it doesn't have to be a streetcar. It can be any element, even if you have a figure in the foreground. If you think that the figure, he or she, is a focal point, you can spend more time on that figure than the rest of the painting. And if you take any master watercolorist or any master paintings, you will see this. They spend more time on the foreground element or things which are the focal point than the rest of the painting. And I'm trying to get some elements from the streetcar, and I did painted quite a lot of streetcar in my paintings. All the paintings I've shown in my channel, and you could see most of the paintings, unless it's a landscape, most of my paintings will have a streetcar element in it. And I enjoy painting streetcar because it kind of creates this really nice Paris French paintings, because I really like this artist named Eduardo Cordes, and he paints a lot of French Paris from 1800s and 1900s, and his painting always have a streetcar in it and a lot of people in his paintings. So he's my inspiration. So I want to, even though this is kind of like a contemporary painting, I also want to have a little bit of realism in my painting as well. And I'm not worried about the colors, and I'm also, the only thing I'm worried about when I'm painting is, I'm not worried about the colors. The only thing I'm worried about is the value. I want to make sure that when I'm painting something, it does look 3D and realistic. So that's one of my goals, even though this painting is going to be a contemporary painting. And because you can explore however you want it, but when you do it, have a little bit of three-dimensional element in your work. So that shows forms, and that also create depth and dimension in your work. So you could see that I'm also adding the front part of the side part of the streetcar. And so in Toronto streetcars, they usually have a back opening and the front opening. And now I'm going to add tertiary details, and the details which exist in the in a reality or in a Toronto scene. And there is a street called Queen Street East or West, and they have this street poles which is kind of like from olden days. So I saw a reference, so I kind of added it just to have really nice element to it. Being said that, when I did it, I did the perspective a little bit wrong, and it also added this little bit of nice element as well. And you can see as I painted this street poles, as it goes to the midground and the background, I used tissue paper to get off the paint, because I want the value to be lighter and lighter and lighter. So what this does is, and you can see that just by doing that, it created a really nice perspective, and it also created depth in our painting. And now I'm going to add some details for the back of the streetcar, and now I'm adding the figure. And for the figures, I'm going to treat them as a shape. And I leave his pant, and I'll keep it as light as possible. And I'm also adding a different value, so he pops out, and he comes in front of the building already. And there's also this bus stop, and I'm going to increase a little bit of value in the foreground building just to see that it comes to the foreground, because now the value for the vertical building and the foreground building looks the same value. So I just increased the value a little bit than the from the midground building, the vertical building. And just by doing that, you could see that the foreground building comes in the front. So now we can increase the value, go a little bit darker value, and just by doing this, the streetcar back part will come in front. And you can see that in watercolors, it's kind of like you're doing a layer caking. You are just layering stuff slowly from lightest wash to the darkest wash. And that's the other challenging part. A lot of beginners or even a lot of my students struggle with is layering, but it does take a little bit of patience and practice and perseverance to get it there. And you can see that I'm also adding some details for the glass, for the windows, the glass windows of the streetcar. And I'm not worried about his colors that much, but I want to make sure my colors look a little bit muted. So I'm not doing any like strong pigments. The reason being is, and even though in our inspiration the colors look vibrant, whereas in a winter scene, if you go out and see, everything looks saturated than in a summer scene or in early afternoon or in the evening. So that's what I'm trying to capture, and I'm trying to get the details for the streetcar. Again, I'm thinking of how can I turn the shape from back to front, because streetcar is a rounder at the back, and you can see in the inspiration. That's why I want to make sure that, so whenever it's a rounder form, so there's going to be a darker value on sides of it. So I'll be doing another wash on top of it. It's the exact same thing I'm doing it for the glass window at the back as well. And you can see as soon as we add the darker value on the left hand side and the right hand side, you can see the form started rounding out in our reference. And I think that I also want to mix some colors for the glass, and I also want to make sure that it kind of looks like a winter scene. So I'm putting some different color variation on the windows, and I'm using tissue paper to get rid of it. And this is the lights, and this also enhances a little bit of details at the back of the streetcar. And the back of the streetcar has a really nice lighting because it has this red lighting. So I'm going to add that and making sure to, again, thinking about how can I make this shape 3D as possible. And as you can see, we spend less time on other areas in this painting, but I'm spending more time on the streetcar itself. As I said, my focal point is the streetcar, so I want to make sure to make sure this looks 3D and realistic, and it looks loose and looks contemporary and looks abstract. And back in the days when I started painting, I wasn't focusing on my strokes, because I used to try to paint really confidently without thinking about strokes. But in later years, I'm getting a little bit tighter and tighter, and I'm trying to make really straight lines. And even in this painting I'm showing, I'm speeding up this painting. I'm not painting it as like what you're saying. I wish I can paint this fast, but I don't, because nowadays I take my time to do a stroke, because I want to try to capture the edges, and I'm trying to capture the thickness of the edges as well. Because when I started painting, whenever I make the edges like streetcars, I used to make it really thick. So I don't use one brush, and I try to create it. But later I realized that this also creates a scale in our painting. And you can see that I'm also adding that details, which is connecting the wire at the top. And you can see just by doing that and increasing the value, it came in the front of our painting. And I'll be focusing on a little bit of the figure, which is in the foreground. I should have made the figure a little bit in the front of the streetcar and made him walk, but this is also fine as well. So this is the last step. I wait and the darker pigment as well as for the shadows. I want to make sure there's snow on the ground. I want to make sure to create those edges and not being straight. And this also helps to anchor the streetcar on the ground. And you can see that as soon as we add that shadow, the streetcar is sitting on this snowy road by itself. And there are buildings in the background, and which is not that visible, so I pre-wet the paper and I added some more buildings at the back. And I think that's it. We don't have to do anything else, and we would have stopped the painting here. But I'm just going to add some of the tertiary details, like bringing back the eyelets, bringing back the lights at the back of the streetcar. And this also killed the monotonous in a painting, even though it's a really dull painting. And you can see when I squint my eyes, Our eyes goes to the back of the streetcar because it has a really nice contrast with a little bit of colors in it, as well as that's the strongest value in our painting as well. And I just added the number and I'll just stop it there and sign my painting. So this is the final painting. I always tape my watercolor paper just to get this really nice out edges on the corners of the paintings. And when I frame it, it also looks really nice. And again, use the principles of what I've shown in this video, and you could use your own reference, or else you can use the same exact painting what I'm doing. And when you do it, the one main thing is just to have fun with it and don't cut up on details. Thank you once again for watching this painting tutorial. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. If you have any other watercolor related topics you'd like me to cover, reach out to me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to hit the subscribe button to become a part of our learning community. By subscribing, you'll receive weekly upload notifications and stay updated on our channel and share with your fellow artists, friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.